Okay, what's up, folks? This is Kenny with Just the Right Angle, coming at you live. I'm doing a bit of a long story about this. This has been a pretty big issue for me. Of course, everybody knows Charlie Kirk was assassinated a few days ago, and there have been many examples of people that have celebrated his death. I do want to kind of bring up some of the examples of them and also some of the legacy that he's left. But I also want to talk about the real threat to his legacy. So here's an example of somebody who needs to be fired. Springdale School District. This is Maricela Tapia, ELD interventionist. I think it's English second language or something to that effect. And you can see her disgusting comment. ELD interventionist. I think it's sorry about that. Rumble sometimes auto plays videos. A bigot who defended. So she says here, a bigot who defended the Second Amendment over the lives of children was shot and killed by the guns he loved and protected. I call that divine justice. That's sickening when you think about it. Remember, police officers, most of the military are also pro Second Amendment people, and they're killed by guns. Also, that's a lie. You're not defending the Second Amendment over the lives of children. We're you actually supporters of the Second Amendment to use to defend children. That's why the Second Amendment is there. Children that are often killed are killed in gun-free zones. And now we find that many of these people are killed by those on the left. So this is a sicko in Springdale, Arkansas. And there's a lot of these leftist people are in government who shouldn't have been there in the first place. And that's part of the problem that we have today. But what I want to talk about is someone a lot more, who I think is a lot more dangerous. I'm going to post these links onto the chat so you can see them. Check them out yourself. And you feel free to comment on what you think. If you know of anybody else that you think maybe deserves a little more attention, let me know. Let everybody know, because we do need to find these people. And I'm not going to downplay that at all. They are dangerous. They're indoctrinating kids to grow up to become the next Tyler, the next mass shooter, or get them to the next person that's going to kill themselves. I mean, it is a destructive lifestyle that the Democrats have created for our children. Well, I want to focus is on another guy. So this is Talk Business with Roby Brock. And Roby Brock is a columnist, a political guru. I'll talk about his biography later. So this is the person he decided to interview right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He has a show that comes on, I think, every Sunday. And he decided to interview John Brummett. For those who don't know, John Brummett is an avowed leftist. He's just as left as the lady I just showed you. He may not be as publicly joyful of a conservative being shot, but he is a leftist, and I mean far left. So why Roby Brock decided to interview this guy right after Charlie Kirk and get his opinion is beyond me. There are a lot of conservatives, Republicans, who would have gladly sat down and given their take regarding what happened. Now, this is 12 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing. The first few minutes is John Brummett talking about the basically the background of just the overall setting of. He kind of gives this nebulous view about why these mass shootings are taking place and political violence. And you can see the whole thing, but I focus in on this part. Roby Brock's going to ask him a question, and then I'm going to just play this little section here. It's closed caption, so you can see it, and then I'll pause it and give my discussion on what I think about this. But I want you to pay attention to what this guy says.
History gives us a lesson, though. We saw this type of political violence in the 1960s, and we cycled out of it. I mean,
Yes.
not that there weren't other assassination attempts. Gerald Ford had an assassination attempt
Right.
on him. Ronald Reagan had an assassination attempt on him. But we got out of that circumstance that we were in the 60s, where it was so expected because so many high-profile leaders, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., all of this, and John F. Kennedy, all this happened. What do you think could turn the tide in this conversation?
These things turn when we reach a critical point at which we realize it's not happening anymore, and we're not sure what caused it to stop. But looking back with the longer term, it gives you some comfort that we're actually, these are, in one sense, only a few bad actors. And we were generally a free, competent, capable America. Otherwise, it's just that it was challenged or imperiled by actions of some. And somehow, I think maybe evil against good goes in cycles. And I can't tell you specifically why 1973 was so much nicer than 1968.
Right.
It just was.
Yeah.
And we had a certain incendiary situation in the late 60s. And it's cyclical, but it cannot be cyclical unless we remain a competent, good country.
Okay. He's dancing around the issue. All those assassination attempts were done by Democrats. And a lot of the riots that take place were actually Democrat-funded riots that were actually funded by the communists. We now know that they were actually bankrolled, and their speeches were written, and they were bussed around just like today by communist agitators. And a lot of the political violence, almost all of it, was exclusively within the Democrat Party. But of course, John Brummett doesn't want to say that. I mean, who ran the 60s? Woodstock and all that. Those are the Democrats. And what's really sad is a lot of the violence ended up harming more Democrats than even Republicans. The burning down of cities, the massive drug use that was used in the hippie communes, a lot of the assaults that were happening there. It was just like Occupy Wall Street, just like BLM and whatever other fake made up leftist movement that occurred. It was done by leftists, but he doesn't want to admit that. But here, let's go on.
On the whole, at the moment, I hope that we are, but we may be going into talking about President Trump.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he is challenging our underlying constitutional principles in his authoritarian actions, which they're picking up. That I think that further complicates it. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that we also, for this incident or any others, it's just that, by the way, at the same time, we're going through challenges to our constitutional principles because this president believes, with a lot of public support, that this is a time that needs a strong man, an authoritative leader. And that's not the way we're founded. And so that compounds the problems that we face. Our courts have to stand up, our people have to stand up, and we've got to have elections that people believe, and in which and we've got to have elections in which the Democrats give her better options and are a more competent party as the opposition party. And then we need a Supreme Court, if it comes down to it, to issue a big ruling. And let's hope all of that can happen.
Yeah.
So he blames Trump's so-called authoritarianism and attacks on the Constitution, which, if you're going to make that kind of claim, you need to be specific. He blames that for the shooting. He blames that for political violence. Absolutely stupid. This isn't the first person to say that, too. There's other people that have said, basically, if you wanted Charlie Kirk alive, you shouldn't have elected Trump. That's actually, I forget who said that. But this is an Arkansas example. So this guy, he may not be celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, but he's shifting the blame from who it deserves, which is leftists. In this case, it was a gay guy who was dating a guy that was transitioning to a girl, who was indoctrinated by leftists, who is apparently a member of the Democrat Socialists of Utah. That's who did it. But Brummett doesn't want to admit it, so he blames Trump. All while doing a little fake caveat saying, I'm not blaming anybody, and yet mentions Trump's name. These are the kinds of people that we need to deal with. These are the kinds of people that are a threat to any kind of conservative movement. And not just John Brummett, but Roby Brock himself, for putting this clown on right after the assassination of a conservative leader. Because there's a lot of Republicans that go on this guy's show and they don't call him out for the fraud that he is. So, folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I am going to do a broadcast. I'm going to play some video, take a little bit of a 5-minute break here of some things that have happened. I'll just this would be like if we were doing radio, this would be like a commercial break. But since I'm not on radio and don't have sponsors yet, I'm just going to play these.
Encouraged me to start a chapter at my high school. Unfortunately, school administrators have not approved the chapter yet. We've tried multiple times, as Peter stated. This year, we're going to try again. Glenbrook North. We're at Glenbrook North, and unfortunately, they're not approving it.
Dr. Michael Tarjan, Director of Student Activities, has denied our right of free speech. Email him. We need to start a chapter. We need to spread this movement. And we have to recognize that. We have to continue his movement, and we have to make it even bigger and even stronger. I tried to get Turning Point USA approved at Glenbrook North last year with my friend Nate. They denied us. Wait, you know what club they allow? Students Demand Action. They said our club already exists, but it didn't. It was a news club. That is nowhere near Turning Point. We need to get clubs approved at every high school around the nation. We must continue this fight. The administrators denied the club. Dr. Michael Tarjan. Please email him. Who wants his email?
Let's go!
Yeah!
Let's go!
Get your phones ready to write it down so you can send him emails right now.
Yeah!
Everyone ready?
Yeah!
MTARJAN at Glenbrook. GLENBROOK 225.org. Send him emails. Help us get our club approved. Help us continue Charlie's mission. We must spread this. We cannot let our kids live under Democrat rule. We need capitalism in our country. Thank you guys for coming.
Encouraged me
around here is going to be a master debater. It's me. So let's go. Who wants to debate the master debater? Let's go. You right there.
That's the stupidest haircut I've ever seen.
You are wrong. Leviticus 3:17 says it shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings. So you can shut up, baby. You just hate America and you love abortions.
After Charlie Kirk was fatally gunned down while speaking at a college event yesterday, some MAGA supporters are pointing the finger at South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, alleging they helped fuel the hatred that led to the conservative influencer's assassination as a result of one of the show's recent episodes. The second episode of season 27, titled Gotta Nut, originally aired August 6 and immediately drew attention for lampooning Kirk's college speaking style. In the episode, one of the show's iconic characters, Eric Hartman, parodied Kirk, adopting his mannerisms for a satirical college debate podcast, while sporting his iconic hairstyle and look. The Lampoon climaxed with Cartman receiving the Charlie Kirk Award for Young Master Debaters. Days after the episode aired, Kirk himself laughed off the mockery.
Okay, everybody, the South Park episode just dropped, and honestly, it is hilarious. I mean, part of it is kind of like whatever, typical humor, but it was hilarious.
Kirk even told Fox News at the time he had grown up watching South Park and considered the parody part of being in the public arena. But after his death, the satire has become a flashpoint, as MAGA conservatives online have alleged Parker and Stone fueled a fire that contributed to Kirk's death. One ex-user posted, "South Park certainly fermented the hatred necessary to get Kirk assassinated." Another outright fumed, "Trey Parker and Matt Stone are responsible for this." And a Turning Point USA staffer posted on Telegram, "Comedy has consequences. Charlie was targeted in the culture before he was targeted in real life." A petition has even started racking up signatures demanding the network apologize for airing the parody, and has already gotten more than 100,000 signatures in its first day. Comedy Central quietly removed the rerun of the episode Got a Nut from its cable lineup, just hours after Kirk's death. The Paramount Skydance-owned network slotted in episode 1 from the same season instead. The network did not issue a public statement, but confirmed to industry outlets that the episode was temporarily pulled from its cable rotation. However, it remains available to stream on Paramount Plus with a subscription.
Okay, folks, so that's kind of a little bit of what I'm talking about. There's some videos that I decided to share regarding this issue. Sorry. Sometimes there's a little bit of break between these commercials that automatically play. So this is Robbie Brock. This is a guy who decided to put John Brummett on a pedestal. And there's a little bit about him. He's a media executive journalist, a political reporter in Arkansas. He's the CEO of the company. His show is Talk Business and Politics. And it's aired on Fox. And, of course, he writes for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette and Arkansas Business. Well, look at his career. He worked on Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign and worked for Jim Guy Ducker, who was also a Democrat. By the way, this guy was indicted for crime. He was a member director of the Arkansas State Election Commission, ran for state senate. And so he's the CEO of Talk Business and Politics and this other company here, Northwest Business Journal. And Rock River Communications does his show and documentaries. And, of course, he moderates on Arkansas NPR affiliates. And that's things that we pay for. Here he had a dispute. So he had alleged that defendants had conspired to remove his television program from the air. I don't know about removing him from the air. Again, I don't want government to shut anybody down. But we don't need to be paying for him. If he's still on AETN, which is taxpayer funded, he needs to be out of there. We don't need to be paying for a guy that's going to put John Brummett on the air right after the death of a conservative, so John Brummett can whine and complain and obfuscate about who actually is responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. Because like I said, it's obvious that the guy was a leftist. And I know Republicans are often always blamed for these shootings. Either they're tried to, every time there's a mass shooting, it's always, were they Republican? Try to find some way to connect them to the Republican Party. Somehow their dad was Republican, or maybe they are registered Republican. We saw this with the guy that tried to kill Trump. They found out he was registered as a Republican. Well, actually, he was a Democrat, and he only registered as a Republican for the very purpose of sabotaging the primaries, which in and of itself leads to the question, why are Democrats allowed to sneak into Republican primaries? So what we have been needing to do is not just go after the leftists who are bragging and happy about Charlie Kirk's death, but we really need to find these more deceitful leftists, the ones that try and obfuscate, that try to deflect a lot of those in our media who try to pretend to be unbiased when in reality they're just as they want Charlie Kirk dead just as much as the liberal hippie lady cheerleading, but they're more cautious about it. But folks, what I'm going to talk about this after I take another break in a few minutes, is one of the things that Charlie had to do in regards to the Republican Party. Because we know that Charlie Kirk, of course, he founded Turning Point USA. Real question is, why did he have to do it in the first place? There is a multi-million-dollar organization called the Republican Party. Hey, Rager 556, I'm doing great. And this party is supposed to make sure, be fighting for these principles that Charlie Kirk talked about, or Christian rights, or fighting to reduce taxes. And it's supposed to be reaching out to all branches of people, including young people. But it didn't do that. Matter of fact, the young Republicans and the teenage Republican groups, for the most part, have really been kind of a failure. And you could just see that by the fact that you rarely ever see them. And it was really Charlie Kirk that kind of lit a fire underneath him and said, hey, you need to get involved. You need to reach out to people, and did it in a very clever way. And I'm going to actually bring up another video. I thought about bringing this up before, but I need to look for it specifically. But it's about an example of what happened when some young Republicans tried to get involved and got cheated. I need to put this on YouTube so you can have the captions to it. But I'll play this after a break. But several young Republicans, there's been a lot of examples where a lot of people wanted to get involved, said, okay, I want to get involved in conservative politics, and were kicked out and were shoved out and cheated. And we've seen it all across the nation. And that's kind of the segment I want to talk about in a little bit when we get back from a break. I'm going to go ahead and play a video of an issue that has been going on for a while. It's a little bit separate from this, but like I said, this will be like a commercial break. But this is about the Franklin County Prison debacle. And if you listen, you can look and watch and listen to this. And then I'll come back. I'll talk a little bit more about what we can do regarding what's been going on, what Charlie had to do, and what we need to do in following his example regarding the Republican Party.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Adam Watson joining us. He is a director with Gravel and Grit. Many of you know that was a group formed not too long ago in opposition of the Franklin County Prison. Adam, thanks for being here with me today.
Hey, Jenny, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a really big meeting tomorrow down in Little Rock at the Capitol in the big room, Big Mac A. There's been a lot of discussion about the proposed Franklin County Prison. Gravel and Grit worked really hard to get this meeting scheduled. Walk me through what this is all about.
Yeah, so early on in this process, we realized as we were building relationships with legislators that we don't really have a specific ask of them. This project was advanced without any legislative approval. So when we started working in opposition to it, until the funding bill came up last session, we didn't have anything that we were really asking them to do other than advocate on our behalf. So one of the things that we did was start looking through committees in the legislature, both that meet in session and out, and we came across Joint Performance Review, or JPR, and it seemed to be a really good fit for what we were trying to do, which is just get all the facts on the record and get somebody with more clout, more power than the everyday citizen who only has access to Google and FOIA, which are great tools, but they only
Yeah.
get you so far. So we filed a complaint with JPR with the intent of trying to get to the heart of some of the matters that we've seen with the prison that just don't sit well with us, and we don't think would sit well with the taxpayers if they were fully informed of what's been going on.
What was that process like? I don't think that this is something that's done that often, where you have to collect signatures, have a petition, then go to the committee. What was that process like? What was it like collecting the signatures? How many did you guys end up with?
So I think the total number was 1,258. And to the committee's credit, which, always credit where it's due,
Sure.
they agreed to conduct the hearing before we even submitted the petition.
Okay.
So they read our complaint as a standalone action and thought it had enough merit to warrant investigating, which we're grateful for. We're also, of course, grateful to the community and, beyond our community. We had
Yeah.
signatures from all over the state, all over the country, and I think 7 different countries around the world. So this is something that people are paying attention to, certainly outside of Franklin County, but outside of Arkansas as well. Process-wise, to your point, this isn't something that's done very often. In fact, I think we scrolled back through the last 5 or 6 years of JPR meetings, and we couldn't find something that was close enough to what we're trying to do for us to emulate. So a lot of it was just building from scratch and taking our best stab at it. As an organization, we've always had the mantra that the facts are the facts, and as long as you present them in a way that people can understand and can grab onto, then you don't have to kind of play any games with it. It's not a political thing. It's just, it is what it is. And
Yeah.
if you hear the story, I think you're on our side. So that's how we went about it.
You mentioned a second ago, you wanted to get to the heart of the matter of this issue and the petition. What would you say that is? What is the heart of the matter, and what did you guys include in that petition?
So we included 4 different complaint areas that we see as problematic, and there are things that are problematic, yes, for things that have happened with this project, but there are also issues that we can see coming up in the future, that would continue to be overly burdensome for taxpayers and just the state government operating in an overbearing and overreaching way. So it's kind of twofold. Yes, we'd like to get to the heart of what's gone on with this project, but we'd also like to lay a foundation to put practices in place to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, so I was looking at the list of those who will be speaking tomorrow. It's a really interesting list. I think that this will be the first time that a lot of these people have come to the table to answer questions in this particular way. Walk me through, or who would you want our viewers to know about that will be testifying? And correct me if I'm wrong, but JPR also is one of the few, if not the only committee that also has people testify under oath. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, but again, this hasn't been done a lot before, so don't be shocked if we walk in and it's different. But yes, that's my understanding.
So who are you looking? Yeah, who are you looking forward to hearing from and answering questions?
Well, over the course of this whole thing, I think we've heard a lot from Mr. Magnus and Mr. Watson. No relation, by the way, purely coincidence. But the others that are going to be there, Mr. Porphyry, Ms. Laidlaw, and Mr. Johnson. We did hear from each of them at the town hall in Charleston that was hosted right after the prison was announced.
So that was
But
early last fall. Is that right?
it was November 7th, I believe. So
Okay,
7
yeah.
days after the announcement. And while we certainly appreciate them taking the time to come out and speak with the community, it was at a time where, every reaction was still a knee-jerk one, and it wasn't based on fact. It was based on emotion. And the questions weren't being asked under the backdrop of all the information that we have today. Sitting here, what is it, 10 months after the announcement, the landscape's changed a lot. We know a lot more than we did then, and our opinions ultimately are still the same with regard to whether the prison can or should be built here, but I think it's for much different reasons. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say in response to questions that are formulated based on the facts that we know today.
You mentioned this has been going on for 10 months. So much has happened. I can remember whenever that was first announced, I had Shannon Sosby come on and do an interview maybe a week after that was announced. And I can remember that interview with Shannon. It was just, I was her son, I believe, and it was just shock, disbelief, heartbreak. How did this happen? They felt just completely blindsided. And but now when you look at what's happened over the course of 10 months, there's been a lot out there that, people shake their heads at. It's like, how can you continue to move forward with this knowing what you know now?
So anyway, that's kind of my little break video regarding that issue. That Franklin County Prison is just one example of kind of good old boy networking stuff that's been going on for years in Arkansas. Sadly, it's something that should have been taken care of. We're, by the way, one of the most red states in the nation, and yet we have corruption like this going on. So as I mentioned before, Charlie Kirk's legacy, one of the things that he did besides creating Turning Point USA was making an effort to clean up the Republican Party. The Republican Party that should have been spearheading this effort. Charlie Kirk shouldn't have never had to create Turning Point USA in the first place, but he had to because the Republican Party was utterly failing in terms of reaching out to the young people, to college and to teenagers and preteen. And one of the other things that Charlie Kirk also did, in addition to creating Turning Point USA, was making an effort to fix the Republican Party, especially after the failures in the 2020 elections. And for that matter, 2022. And this, in large part, this happened because of one person, Ronna McDaniel. She's henceforth why she's the cartoon that I displayed in the thumbnail to save this video. She was and is an absolute disgrace. She should have, in a just world, should be in jail for the things that she did. But unfortunately, we have to settle for is getting her fired. So Ronna McDaniel was the chair of the Republican National Committee, or RNC, not too long after Trump had won and had defeated the establishment in the last election in 2016. And Ronna McDaniel proceeded to just flounder, waste money on everything from floor arrangements to other stupid items. And she was like many other RNC chairs, basically an establishment just planted there to do nothing, at the very minimum, nothing. As a matter of fact, it seems like it would have been better if she did do nothing. Now, I forget how much money she was paid, but when the effort to fire her began, it actually began under Charlie Kirk. And so if you're seeing this video, this was going on a few years ago, but this is me talking about Charlie Kirk wanting Ronna McDaniel fired. So I'm going to play this footage from, I forgot what day when this was. Kirk runs Turning Point USA. I'll just play this right quick.
You don't let people lie about you and let it go unanswered. Let it go unanswered. If somebody's spending $30 million against you and they're lying about you and say you won't give life-saving care for miscarriages or an ectopic pregnancy, you better get on TV and tell them that the voters that's a lie, or they think that's the truth.
Okay, you got to spend money to get on TV, money that you have instead spent on lavish things for yourself.
And our candidates have got to do this. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can go and say, this is where I stand. The Democrats are lying. And now let's talk about crime, schools, border, fentanyl, and national security.
I just want to clarify one quick thing, though. The RNC had no involvement in these elections in Virginia per Governor Youngkin's request.
We were told in the summer they didn't need us, that they had all the money and they were good. So that was the conversation.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
You can tell this guy right here, he doesn't believe a word of it.
We'll be following up on that to find out what's that all about. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, because it's a lie. And you can tell that everybody knows it's a lie. There's no politician that sits there and says, oh, we don't need money to do a race, especially when it's a tight race. Okay, so Virginia GOP Chair Rick Anderson, he has now confirmed he asked the RNC to match the Democrats' $1 million late cash infusion into the state. Republicans were outspent by $8 million and lost most of the elections by a couple thousand votes. Rich Anderson confirmed he had this power out of finances anytime. He would have gladly accept financial assistance. Of course they do. Of course they do. And this is from lifenews.com, a pro-life group. We were outspent 35-1 abortion advertising in Virginia. We could have won the state. The GOP had gotten more involved. This has been a huge problem. This is why a lot of groups like Moms for Liberty, pro-life organizations, Reopen Arkansas, here in my state, Secure Arkansas, Gun Owners of Arkansas, Gun Owners of America, Nebraska Freedom Coalition, these groups, and then my group, Just the Right Angle, we have had to form because the Republican Party, as a standard operating procedure, refuses to get involved in these issues. They just don't want to do it. So, and sadly, it's still the case. Now, Ronna McDaniel did eventually leave, but not after a fight. So I don't know when that video was done, but I know when this was done, this was in, even though it's my video, I can't see the date on it. The RNC, Ronna McDaniel, went after Turning Point and Charlie Kirk. And this is December 2022. This is from Red State. And so instead of, matter of fact, I think Ronna McDaniel went after Charlie Kirk and spoke against him more than she did any Democrat. So she went on a Fox News radio show claiming that TPUSA didn't bring out the vote. This was after the failures of the 2022 election. Remember, she's the RNC chair. And then she lost the straw poll. The AmFest. And of course, a bombshell report talking about her lavish spending. This lady should have never been made RNC chair. But here she is going after Charlie Kirk. And here's Charlie Kirk basically showing the receipt saying, yeah, what they did actually, they did work hard. And look at this, 2,000 new precinct leaders. So again, Charlie Kirk had to do this. We would have probably lost the last election. We'd probably have a Soros 3.0 and Kamala Harris by now if it hadn't been for Charlie Kirk. Yeah, the $700,000 in flowers. Thankfully, Ronna McDaniel resigned. It should have been sooner, but she actually resigned in, I think, was it February 2024? I believe. She resigned not too long after this. Well, depending on how I think is long. But yeah, it should have been sooner. And the sad thing is within the Republican Party, and I'm going to show this graphic, we have a similar problem. And we have consultants like Ronna McDaniel that have infested the Republican Party, and they need to go as well. And I've mentioned them before. This is the main thing I want to talk about is we have Chris Caldwell of Caldwell Consulting, who has among his clients big pharma organizations like Empower Health. He has the utility companies like Entergy and Summit Utility. And of course, utility companies are basically globalists who jack up your utility rates while trying to build windmills and solar panels. And quite frankly, for most part, we shouldn't be paying them anything because our tax money used to bail out big companies like Enron, which owned a lot of the utilities. It's a scam. And among Chris Caldwell's other clients, I don't know if you can see this graphic. I may need to get it to where it's full screen. Here, let me put it on full screen. There we go. You can see it a lot better. So right here in his forehead, this is one of Chris Caldwell's clients, Meta. For those who don't know, that's Facebook. Facebook, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. Do we even need to ask where he stands on Christian values? These people like this should not be anywhere near the Republican Party, let alone in charge of it. But here's what's going to happen, because I've seen this before. I saw this with the Tea Party when I was involved in it, and I saw it again with the MAGA movement, is people want to get involved. They show up at Republican county committees. They show up at Republican events. They ask to volunteer. They want to work. They want to want to get rid of abortion, not just the clinics, but get rid of the pills as well. They want to lower taxes. They actually want to reduce the size and scope of government. And what happens is they try to get involved, and then they get treated like garbage, especially if they try to make any kind of decision-making process, especially if they try to run for chair or they take over a committee. And cowards like this, Chris Caldwell and this Chase Duggar, I didn't have time to put a picture on him, and these consulting firms cheat them out. They scam them. They treat them like garbage. They lie to them. They take their money. They take their time, and then they try to kick them out. One example is Saline County Republican Committee, one of the largest committees in the state of Arkansas. It's been removed now over an incident involving a fight and a complaint by one person after a few people, and they decided to use as an excuse to delete the entire committee. In Craighead County, and if you follow my page, you know about this, they removed the chair and most of the officers over a fake complaint regarding what you call inactive members. They changed the fake corrupt rules committee within the Republican Party of Arkansas, made up a rule about inactive members, didn't tell anybody about it, didn't actually properly meet to even make the rule, and then when someone enforced the rule that had been around for a while regarding inactive members, that being Barry Edgars, they accused him of violating the rules, had a kangaroo court, and kicked him out of the committee. Now, fortunately, Craighead County did have some other elections, and they were able to put in place similar conservatives, but This guy was Barry Eggers was one of the most successful chairs of Craighead County. And again, these guys are getting paid lots of money. When we have Republican primaries, by the way, filing for primaries is November 3rd. You need to ask anyone running for office, who is your consultant and who are their clients. You want to know why we have God-hating judges who rule against us and the Republican Party never defunds them? Chase Duggar, this is one of his clients, the Arkansas Association of Judges right here. And yes, this guy, Chris Caldwell, ran the Sarah Huckabee Sanders governor campaign, which could have been done by anybody, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders was going to beat any Democrat. Yeah, and of course, one of his other sponsors is the Island View Casino Resort. So big casinos run the party. This guy, by the way, runs the party. Not officially, but when he does, he's able to shut down any meeting. We had, during our last meeting, the winter committee meeting, there was a 2-page agenda where people wanted to give reports from various organizations, the African American Coalition, the 1st and 2nd District. By the end of that first page, Chris Caldwell had decided that they didn't want to have the meeting anymore, so he adjourned the meeting. So they cut it off before those other Republican officials could give their reports. So that's who runs the party. I'm gonna play this as kind of an example of what I'm talking about, and then I'll kind of end the show here. This was the Saline County Young Republicans. This was a little over a year ago, and they were having their elections, and a bunch of people wanted to join and be part of this organization. And I'm just going to play a little bit of what happened here. I've played this before, but it needs to be played again. So what they did is when they tried to join with this Rusty Jackson, who is, by the way, the head of the Arkansas Young Republicans, said, well, you have to be credentialed first. He never told people when they first joined that they had to do this. And of course, the credentialing was them meeting behind closed doors and saying only members of their little buddy system could be credentialed. And so he cheated these people. She cheated people that tried to get into this organization. By the way, they're the ones that picked this area. This is a bad area to meet. It's way too noisy. So I actually should try to put this on YouTube so you can get closed captions so you can see what they say, but that's something I need to do later on. So again, what they did is they snuck in some extra rules so they could kick people out. Didn't tell people. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, folks. I was sharing the wrong tab here, so you can see what I was talking about. And again, they took people's money, and then only when they showed up did they inform them of this new credentialing rule, which is contradictory to the bylaws that exist, which is you're registered to vote in Saline County and you pay your dues.
So your county bylaws cannot contradict the state bylaws.
This is what was approved last year, supported by the state.
So this is the state, right?
Our state bylaws,
Constitutional bylaws.
the state has given us clear to make our own laws as long as they are supported.
Okay, so I just need to understand if your AFRW, AFIR, Constitution and bylaws say immediately upon those requirements being met, which I told you earlier, they are contradicting, I guess, your county bylaws.
The chapter bylaws have already been approved by the state.
Well, so has this.
Yes,
But
it
as
does.
well, they can't contradict.
There can be two, and that we follow our chapter. That's the three things. We have a motion on the table. I've heard a second. Is there any motion?
I'm gonna have to bill.
I've already talked with the party. Now you're back. You may.
The rules are contradicting. I think you should at least clarify.
Can you clarify what you're objecting to?
That if it were paid members, that we cannot vote.
Can you clarify what we're objecting to?
We cannot vote. You have base credentialing.
I don't know what he's talking about or what you're talking about.
So basically, in summary,
I make a motion to suspend the rules.
No, ma'am, you're not a voting member. You cannot make motions.
may I explain what the difference?
So again, this guy's just trying to figure out what's going on. She's trying to read the law, and the Rusty Jackson, who I believe was the chair of this committee before they decided to prop up Drew Martin, is just going along with the motion, which you shouldn't be able to do. But
So he's saying none of you all are members, even though you pay.
I understand.
You're not members.
That's what I heard.
No,
So that's what
I'm
he's
the
saying.
chairman. I have the floor.
However, the rules say that if they are registered electors and if they have paid, and if they have paid their dues, then immediately they shall be a member. And he's saying they're not, even though they met those laws. Dues that were paid.
Amber Johnston,
To join the young
Ricker, Georgia Simmons, April Fuller, Christopher Smith, Xana, Emily Curtis, Olivia
They won't let them vote,
Hanson,
even though they're paid.
Miles Caldwell, Kevin Bradshaw, Brandon Lewis, Allison Gray, Robert Dewberry, Sophia Holden, Franklin Sims, Tabitha Connor, Gary Adams. I don't know how to make difference.
so again, here is the cowardly chair, who's now the head of the Arkansas Young Republicans. He's defrauded these people, and he's read off the list of members who can vote and who can't. And this is why, and this is what's going to happen. I guarantee you, they're going to react like this guy. They're going to get treated like garbage, and then they're going to leave if we don't kick guys like this and Chris Caldwell and Chase Duggar and others out. I'll talk more about this issue later on.
I think those people pay dues today. Once they are credentialed, which we have not had time to credential them, we need to make sure that these people are Democrat agents.
I have it right here. I have it right here. It's all right
They have
here.
not been credentialed. To our bylaws, they have not been credentialed, and we will be moving forward with the meeting. She's right here behind me.
We're out. We're not trying to do shit.
See, that's what's going to happen. If you don't get rid of guys like this coward right here, you're going to have more of this. And it's just that simple. So, folks, we need to clean up the Republican Party. Folks, I gotta get out of here. I got other stuff to do. Follow me at Just the Right Angle for more updates on these issues that affect you. find a way to get involved. Just know that you're going to be cheated when you do, but be prepared for that. This video kind of will be about that, and I will see you all later.